Hi everyone, it's me again. Just want to say thanks for taking a look at that first video. I hope you have learned a lot from that one. Um, in this video, basically going to talk about the next step, and that is actually planning what you're going to plant in your garden. I actually I make a list of things that I want to plant, but I also make sure that I have room in the garden for those things. If you're doing a very simple garden, that is perfectly fine. You're going to plant what you're definitely going to eat or preserve. You don't want to overplant. That's definitely something that a lot of people will end up doing. But everything that is on my list, we will eat, I will preserve, and also on my list here, beside the vegetable, for example, for cabbage, I have written down that it likes full to partial sun. So in my plot in the garden, I'm going to pick a place that sometimes gets sun, sometimes doesn't. Along with other vegetables, I have one side of my garden that gets shade in the morning, and then as the sun moves over, it starts to get full sun. So the things that need partial sunlight, I will plant on that side of the garden. Once I have the vegetables picked that I want to plant, I draw up a garden plot. And here's my garden plot. I've been doing it for a little bit. So I know how many rows across I can get things. This year, I'm not doing specific rows of things. I'm doing more of plots, which has to do a lot with companion planting, which I will go into here in this video's next segment. So write down the vegetables that you want. Write down whether they need full sun, partial sun, and then also make a diagram of where you would like to plant those in your garden, just to make sure that you have enough room for everything that you want. If for some reason you don't have room for everything that you want, you can either make the plot of ground bigger, or you can not plant as much of one thing so you have room for another. Now we are going to talk about where exactly to put the vegetables in your garden. I'm going to touch a little bit on the companion planting. There are certain vegetables that will attract bugs, and some vegetables will repel those bugs. Also, some vegetables will put back into the ground what other plants will need. So that's where companion planting has come into effect. Also, it helps on saving some space in your garden for other things that you may want to plant. For instance, if you decide to plant pole beans, you can plant those by your sweet corn, because they're going to need something to wrap around, and that helps save space in your garden. So you can plant the green beans, as long as they're pole beans, with your corn. Gives them something to climb up. The corn is putting into the ground what the green beans will need, and vice versa. They also repel bugs that the other one attracts. Now, if you're not going to do companion planting, one thing I will say is, if you have had a garden the previous year, do not plant potatoes where tomatoes have been, and vice versa. They both attract the same types of pests, and also the ground will be depleted and just not favorable for either of those plants. So in my chart that I rotate my crops. So I have my potatoes way over here versus last year when they were on the other side. And I do not have the tomatoes where the potatoes were last year, and I don't have the potatoes where the tomatoes were the previous year. Also, I'm not doing pole beans, I do bush beans. So my green beans are actually, let's see, I'm in reverse. My green beans are beside the corn. And with my corn, I'm not going to plant in rows, because when the wind blows, that's how everything kind of pollinates the corn husks, tall and everything. the wind blows, it goes to the other, and it creates the corn. Well, if you're in rows and the wind blows, and it's just blowing it all one direction. So if you stagger your plants with the corn, when the wind blows, it's going to be blowing it all around in that one area. So that will also benefit your corn if you don't plant them in rows. The idea, I think, of planting in rows comes from if you're using the pole beans, or also when the farmers decided to, have the machines that made it easier to get the corn harvest at the harvest time. Now, I found this handy dandy little chart online. You can Google companion plants and go to images, and you can find a whole bunch of different charts, and it'll show you which vegetable is a good companion plant for what, and definitely what vegetables are not. There's a couple different charts, but this is the chart that I actually preferred. It went into a lot more detail, and it also covered a lot of the vegetables that I will be planting in the coming year. And you can see, it has your, good companion plants versus the bad companion plants. What I have found is there are a lot of plants that do not like to be by onions. Definitely onions are a no-no for a lot of different things, but also onions are good beside carrots, believe it or not. So in my rows, when I plant my onions, I'm going to do onions and then some carrots, and then onions and some carrots. And they actually will help repel the different bugs that are trying to get on to one another. Also, when you are making up your diagram, your plot of where you're going to plant your vegetables, if you're doing anything that are vines, like your melons, watermelon, cantaloupe, cucumbers, squash, pumpkins, things of that nature, just remember that they are going to take up a lot more room than your bush beans or your peas or lima beans and corn. So you're going to make sure that you have enough room for each of those plants in your diagram. I'll show you mine again. See how I have on mine, I gave them a little bit more room. Same thing with potatoes. The potatoes are going to be eventually in mounds, and I'll continue to pile the dirt up on those as they continue to grow. Same thing with the cabbage there. The cucumbers by the corn, I also did that because they like to vine out, and the corn will be something for them to latch onto and to climb up as well. And then around the edge of your garden, can you see down here at the bottom how I have these X's, and up at the top here I have a line here, and then around the edge of the garden. If you're using a tiller, you're going to want to make sure that you leave yourself enough room at the top and the bottom, so when you're rototillering in between the rows to get out the weeds, if you're doing that, you're going to want to make sure you leave enough room for yourself to turn around. So you don't want to plant everything up against the fence if you build a fence. So just remember to do that as well. So I marked off lines, and then along my fence row, I'm just gonna hoe down along that, and I'll probably hoe in between the rows, only because I'm kind of doing more of a plot. But if you decide to do rows and you rototill down, make sure you leave room to turn yourself around, because if you don't, it just becomes a really, really big mess. Once you have the layout of your garden complete, everything's tilled up, and you're ready to go and purchase your seeds, I'll show you the seeds that I prefer to use. By no means you have to use these brands. It's just the ones that I have found to be the better ones. They have they give me better plants, better yield of fruit and vegetables. Strawberry plants, you can go ahead and purchase them now and find a plot for them. And then as far as your vegetables go, if you're doing potatoes, they come in bags like this, or you can get them at Southern States, has them individually, but they're seed potatoes. Seed potatoes are important because they have the eyes on them, And what you do is you buy 5 pounds of these, and you'll cut them in half, quarters, whatever, each eye, and each eye is going to be a plant. Kennebec potatoes is a good brand to use. I got the white, and I also did red potatoes this year. A lot of the other things I do, lima beans, corn, green beans, and that nature, I go ahead and I use the Southern States brand. They do a really good job on testing the production of their seeds, and every year I haven't had a problem with those. The things that they don't have as far as the Southern States brand goes, I do like to do burpee. We got, broccoli and pumpkin. They do watermelon, the wax beans. We have also burpee sunflowers, these look really cool. I'm excited to try these this year. They don't get as tall as the regular sunflowers, but look how beautiful they're going to be. Man, I can't wait for those. And then also onions. When you get your onion sets, this is what they're going to look like. Grow your own. And they're in this, like this. And to store your seeds, you're going to want to keep them in a cool, dry place before you plant them. If you get them as you go, there won't be any problem with that. But if you need to store them for a little bit before planting, please make sure that they are in a dry, cool place. Potatoes, you want to kind of make sure that they stay in a dark place since they already have eyes on them. You don't want them to sprout anymore. Make sure that it is dry and cool because you don't want them to rot before you get a chance to plant them either. So I think I have covered everything in this little chapter segment on seeds, making your plot, companion plants. If you want to dive more into companion plants, you can send me questions. I'll be more than happy to ask. A lot of my information I have found is, actually on Google. Like I said, you can search that chart that has companion plants, and it also gives you your herbs that you can plant among the other vegetables that will help deter the bugs. And also this year I'm going to try another companion planting with my potatoes and lettuce. I have the potatoes planted already, and once they start sprouting and I start building up the little hills in between those hills, I'm going to plant the lettuce. It'll help save on space in the garden, and they will also benefit one another. And then also along there, I believe it's basil I plant with them. I'm not too sure. Don't quote me on that one though. So if you have any questions about this segment, please leave them. You can, put them on here. I'm going to try to keep up with the comments on the YouTube channel. You can, post the questions underneath the Facebook post on my business page as well. And I will try to answer them the best way that I can. And if I don't know the answer, I'll just go ahead and Google it. But, don't tell anybody. All right. Thanks for watching this segment, and we'll see you next time.